Hey everybody, so we're just going to talk about some jewelry today, some vintage costume jewelry that I would just love to find in my ongoing thrifting and hunting for vintage. As I've sold costume jewelry throughout the years, vintage especially, there's a few brands, there's a few items, pieces, designers, things like that I just would love to find. I have found some really good pieces over the years and have bought and sold just some kind of average costume jewelry, bread and butter type pieces. But these are items that I just haven't come across yet. And I've seen other resellers talk about them. I've seen other jewelry collectors get very excited about finding them. So they're kind of in my mental list when I'm looking at jewelry out at a yard sale or an estate sale, to kind of keep my eyes open for these brands and names. And so we're going to talk about 9 different either brands or types of jewelry that I have on my jewelry bucket list. And hopefully you learn something too along the way, and maybe you'll find one of these pieces. Or if you already have, go ahead, leave a comment. I guess I want to know about it. Anyway, let's go ahead and start. We're going to go over to the computer just to kind of give you some visuals and some tips and tricks about what it is exactly that we're looking for. So as you can see from the screen, we're talking about Trifari. Now you might be wondering, okay, Shannon, I know you have sold Trifari before. It is not that hard to find. Well, that's true. And one of actually my best jewelry flips ever was a brooch by Trifari that was kind of rare and collectible, and it sold for like at least close to $300, I believe. But in any case, what I have not yet found made by Trifari is a line of jewelry that they made called Jewels of India. So the mark would be a crown Trifari mark. So the mark would say Trifari and there would be a little crown over the T. And this particular line of jewelry is, like I said, is called the Jewels of India. Now, I believe the designer of these is Alfred Philippe. And we're just scrolling down. Let me just scroll down. Now, the thing I have to mention at the beginning of this video is, as we look at eBay comps, just keep in mind that when something is like really popular, like Jewels of India is a very popular, high-selling line of jewelry by Trifari, a lot of people will put that in their title just to pull eyes, right? It's kind of keyword spamming. So there are some that are definitely Jewels of India and then some that possibly are not. So I'm not saying, just take it with a grain of salt, but we'll try to figure out how we can find out if it's part of that or not. Okay, so if you just kind of take a look at what the colorway and the things that are part of these high-priced Jewels of India pieces, lots of reds and greens, rhinestone. Look at this top one, sold for $1,375. Just a gorgeous piece of jewelry. Now, Alfred Philippe was a designer at Trifari from like the 30s to the 60s. He's not the only designer, but he was like their head designer during that time period. And a lot of what he brought, he had used to work at Cartier. And so he was bringing that expertise and making jewelry, costume jewelry that looked like fine jewelry. So the pieces that are part of this Jewels of India line can be very, very high quality looking. This one sold for $1,025, and you can see it's from 1945. Now, one of the reasons people can put dates on this is because designs were patented by Trifari. So what I would end up doing if I found a piece by Trifari that was really high quality, nice rhinestones, colorful in this instance, there is a Trifari group on Facebook where I would ask that. Another place that I would go possibly is right here. I'll show you this link. It's called jewelrypatents.com. And what I've done is I've come down to, you can see all the brands that they have the patents for for jewelry designs, and I've come down and I've picked Trifari. And I've done this before. I found a necklace. It was just clear rhinestones, but it seemed like it was from that era. It was that style. And so I came here and I kind of scrolled through different pieces until I found the design. And then I could say in my listing that it was by Alfred Philippe. So that's an option. You can kind of roll, go through here and see, basically, let's see if we just pick one. You can click on drawings. And so this one is a lamb, Alfred Philippe clip pin, right? And it's from 1939. So lots of information on this site. Another site I found is called Trifari.com, and it looks like they're selling jewelry here. And it looks like they've got all sorts of different brands and things like that. But you can say you pick Trifari necklaces and earrings, and very right away we've got this emerald, ruby, sapphire, colored jewelry, right? It says Alfred Philippe 1960s Jewels of India, right? So it's a very knowledgeable person, I guess, who runs this website, and they've done a lot of research. So I think a lot of times you could probably also Google Lens the piece that you found and just see if it comes up by someone else doing your research as well. See if you can find the patent, see if you can find any confirmation that it was actually Alfred Philippe who found this. But this was just an interesting site to me that you could do some research on the names or the different lines. But I would love to find a piece of Trifari's from the Crown or the Jewels of India line. There's plenty of other Trifari jewelry that sells for good prices, but this one just kind of stuck in my head as that would be really cool to come across. Just little earrings like this might not seem very, might look like other rhinestone jewelry, and it could end up being more valuable than you think. Okay, so the next thing that I wanted to talk about is also Trifari, but we could also keep it a general topic of Jelly Belly jewelry. And Jelly Belly is not the name that Trifari gave to their jewelry that fit this criteria, but it's what the collectors came up with as they were coming along. So okay, I'm gonna get tongue-tied over this, but Jelly Belly jewelry, there's a little controversy. Collectors, and I've seen this all along as I've been in different jewelry groups and people talk about Jelly Belly. The name, again, gets applied to a lot of jewelry that possibly isn't technically the true Jelly Belly jewelry, right? So Trifari, in the 40s, they had this line of jewelry that was made of sterling silver, and then the clear part here was made to imitate rock crystal or rock quartz, and it was actually made out of lucite. And so there's these brooches and different pieces like that have this clear lucite piece to it, and it's really collectible. It's usually figurals like this. We have this little hummingbird. It's got this little small, Jelly Belly. And so some collectors are like, if it's not Jelly Belly unless it's by Trifari. Other, people are like, well, the name has kind of spread. Coro did similar pieces around the same time, a little bit later. And, we can call their pieces Jelly Belly as well. So, I'm not the Jelly Belly police, but I would probably only use it in certain circumstances where, I don't know. To me, it feels like it has to be like sterling from that era, whereas like a piece that's newer, just like any brand costume jewelry that puts, some kind of cabochon, like a clear lucite cabochon on their piece, I don't know. I would not feel right calling that Jelly Belly, but maybe that's what collectors, buyers are looking for. as well, and that's what they're searching, and they just want that look, not necessarily, you know, that they care whether it's a true Jelly Belly or not. But I've never really come across, I would love in for the purposes of this video and my personal bucket list, I would definitely want to have one, either Trifari Coral from that time period, sterling, with the clear lucite. Now, it came up, I guess, in the last 20 years or so that it, again, some people aren't quite positive. From what I was reading, they were not quite positive about the whole, here, let me see if one of my next tabs was information about this. So here's some other links I just wanted to share with you. This one's from Antique Trader. It's vintage Jelly Belly jewelry, and so it talks about how collectors disagree on the background information. And here's some more pictures of it. Here's some more information. Let's see. It says there's flowers, hearts, lily pads. Some are colored plastic in red or blue, but they're always part of a figural design in order to consider them a true Jelly Belly. Here's another spider. Okay, and so then we have Trifari. It says costume jewelry. The hardcore collectors, they recognize Trifari as the top manufacturer of Jelly Belly jewelry. Here's an example of a rooster with sterling. Anyway, and then there's Coro. So I was just seeing if this information, what I was thinking about, came up. Oh, here's a nice little ad. I love it when we can find the vintage ads from old magazines and things like that, and you can see examples of the type of jewelry, this type of jewelry. Okay, that is probably not where I read it. I must have read it somewhere else. But anyway, what I did read was that it was made, the lucite was from airplane window rejects. And that was information that someone who had worked for Trifari had come up with. There was other people who were like, well, I don't know if we can say that for sure because there's no, like, you know, nothing written down anywhere that said that was true. But there's an argument to be made both ways. But I just thought that was interesting that they used possibly the airplane window lucite as their, you know, the sheets that they couldn't use for airplane windows got repurposed into this jewelry. So that was kind of interesting. It was all during wartime and things like that. Okay, so let's get away from Trifari for a minute and we'll go to my third on my list. These are in no particular order, but a brand that I would love to find. I'm always on the lookout for Shriner. Now, I have not found any Shriner pieces that I know of. I feel like it's one of those brands that once I knew about it, I have this like haunting feeling that I passed them by. It's probably never happened, but you just never know. So rhinestone jewelry, some of these rhinestone pieces to me, I mean, they're very pretty, but it's only in recent years that I realized how rhinestone jewelry can be completely, you know, as valuable as it is. It seems like rhinestone jewelry can be everywhere, but certain brands sell much higher than others. Okay, so the tricky part with Shriner, so look at this. We've got some, this brooch with earrings over $1,500. Some pieces just in the hundreds of dollars for Shriner. Now, a lot of pieces are marked. They're marked Shriner New York or just Shriner. And they're just right now kind of like the hot ticket item. Now, okay, so I kind of got sidetracked there for a second. Let's just focus on the fact that like some pieces are signed, but there are also many pieces or some pieces of Shriner jewelry that is not marked. And there are characteristics of it that can help us identify it. So I found this particular site here, Collecting Costume Jewelry 101, talking about Shriner. And, there's a little bit of information about it. There's books you can get about Shriner jewelry. There's a lot of collectors of Shriner pieces, and they are willing to pay up for it, which is why it's been on my radar for a little while. It says many of the Shriner designs are unsigned because they were made to order for designers who selected them to complement their design. So like clothing designers, right? So he had a connection. The founder had a connection with famous designers. Okay, so here we go. We have some signatures. Shriner, New York can be on the pieces that you find. Brooches, necklaces, things like that. So now there's traits. They can be found in Shriner designs, but are not unique to Shriner jewelry. Okay, so things such as inverted stones. It's made with settings. It's not cast. There's a hook and eye construction, rivets, handmade components, bar style earring backs, things like this. They have just the different settings can help you identify it. Now, what I would probably do is go to my Shriner Facebook group. You know me in my Facebook groups, and I just go ask other people if they think a piece is Shriner. And sometimes pieces are documented. There might have been like earrings and a necklace or a brooch, and just the earrings are marked or something like that. And so a collector who is like, oh yeah, I have the earrings that go with that, that's definitely a Shriner piece, and that can help you identify it if it doesn't have that mark on it. So anyway, so that was my number 3 Shriner. I would love to find that. Now let's get away from the rhinestone jewelry for a minute, and we'll go a little more earthy, and we're going to talk about this brand or this designer, Gera Lingard Monies. And a lot of her pieces are very, like I said, earth tone. It's a Danish designer. A lot of chunky pieces made out of horn and leather and shell and things like that. Now, what was interesting about this is that I was looking back and I was like, did I actually ever find Monies? And I had a pair of earrings that I sold as is. I think there was something wrong with them, but I sold them as is, as unsigned Monies. Now, I don't remember. This was years ago, and I don't remember why I thought they were by her. But then I later on had found a bracelet, which, let me see. See, I just have it generic in jewelry. So let's do bracelet. We're going to get some more results. Okay, there's that one. So there's this style right here. Okay. There's beads, things like that. And then the clasp is like a wooden clasp. Now, there's a bunch of bracelets that look like this that are made like in the Philippines or things like that, have that same exact clasp, but people attribute it as a Monies bracelet. Now, I had a bracelet like that and with that kind of clasp, and so I wasn't positive, and so I reached out to the company, and the answer that I got back was that all of their pieces are signed. There's usually a little plaque or something on it that is marked, right? So that's the answer I got from the company themselves. So you will see people who, any kind of chunky, kind of earthy jewelry like that, they will say, that it's Monies and it might not be. Okay, so that is what I was told by the company themselves. Now, I see here there's like ones with a tag. Now, whether that's a newer type thing, I'm not sure. But I was trying to find one that actually had the little brass tab on it. Anyway, so I just would love to find any kind of piece of jewelry by Monies. Did they have a tag on this one? No. And people will say unsigned, but I just prefer, I am just going by what they told me from the company themselves when I reached out to them, but I would love to find a piece that's marked. And it says right on it, Moni's. It's not, you know, it's not a hard signature to figure out or anything. But speaking of signatures that might get overlooked or hard to figure out, another brand that I've never found, but I just think it would be fun, is Carlos Sobral, if I'm saying that right. He started off in Rio de Janeiro. He still has stores and boutiques open around the world, and I think a lot of the jewelry kind of hit the peak, like 80s and 90s. But his jewelry is made out of resin. And so I just show you some of the sold pieces real quick. They're just fun, right? Fun, very interesting. These are just bracelets that I'm showing. We've got this like confetti style. It's made out of a polyester resin, but just a lot of fun pieces like this. Now, in order to know that it's made by Sobral, let's look at this little blog post. It's a jewelry designer from Brazil, and his studio was called Genesis. It's now called Memphis, and it says it uses polyester resin. And this is the signature, and this will be on the resin pieces. So people might not necessarily always recognize it. And he's into using recycled materials. Still, the pieces that he's still making today. So I just thought it would be fun to find one of those. Another jewelry maker that deals in like celluloids and plastics is Lea Stein, and her jewelry would be made, I believe, in Paris or France. Okay, so as it says here, her iconic jewelry began being designed in the early 1960s. It was her and her husband. She developed a technique of layering and laminating extremely thin sheets of celluloid acetate. The multi-dimensional pieces were then baked for long periods, cooled, and cut into shapes. Okay, and it could take a really long time to complete. So here's some examples in this one site of some Lea Stein pieces. Again, I believe she's still making them, or there's still stores available. Maybe this is like an official place that you can buy the Lea Stein jewelry. But if we pop over to eBay, it's just kind of fun little whimsical pieces, right? And again, so what I did learn, the early pieces were not signed. I think sometimes they had stickers on them that would have come off or anything like that. And again, there is a Facebook group. So I'm just popping over right here. Here's Lea Stein Appreciation is the group I'm in. And so here are some examples in the group, some information. You know, Facebook groups can be valuable sources of information for reselling. And so here are just some of the marks and things like that. So if you look at this brooch back, the hardware, it's a V-shaped pin. So this one is clearly marked Lea Stein in Paris. But other pieces, I've heard that the V-shaped clasp is kind of a definite for her brooches. And so if you find a piece that you're not sure whether it's Lea Stein, you want to, if it's not a V-shaped pin back, then maybe not. But again, I would go to the experts. I'd go to this group and I'd say, because I do have a bracelet. Let me see if I can find, if I just look up bracelet. She had a certain style bracelet that's called a bypass bracelet. Let me see if I can find. There's maybe none in solds. There's one, but it's hard to see that one. Let me see if there's one that's available. Okay, this kind of style. I have a bracelet kind of like this one right here. And I we'll probably at some point post it in the group and just ask if they think that it's actually a Lea Stein, because you can see this one had a sticker on it. But, you know, there could be other makers of these bracelets that it wouldn't necessarily be her. So I don't want to use her name if that's not what I have. You know, mine's just a plain, like, cream colored celluloid snake kind of bangle bracelet. So I will keep you posted just in case I ever find out, you know, if it's actually a Lea Stein or not. If it is, then she shouldn't be on this bucket list because it means I've already found it. Okay, just fun pieces. More fun pieces is this brand called Lunch at the Ritz. Now, this is kind of along the same lines as Kirk's Folly, just kind of very whimsical, very fanciful type pieces. They're definitely statement pieces. The earrings have a lot of dangles. They have a lot of kind of like storytelling going on in the jewelry. They're pretty high-end costume jewelry. I believe at one point maybe sold it on QVC. And they still do have a website. I'm just sharing some of these pieces. Like this one, so interesting, but it's just one earring, but it's still sold by itself. Here's a grouping of single earrings, it looks like, but you can see they go in the hundreds. And it's like, I feel like this is doable. This is something that I could come across in my searching for vintage. Vintage jewelry, but I don't know, you know, but I just haven't come across it yet. That's all I was trying to say. Sorry, brain and the mouth are not connected today. Okay, let's look at their website. They do have a website, lunchattheritz.com. And if you look at some of the earrings, when I opened them up, I think earrings, necklaces, all were selling for over $200 or more. So, and as you can see, they have a tab for discontinued styles. And so anytime collectible type items get discontinued, then you have the market for them on eBay or other reselling places. Okay, so now we're going to get a little bit more serious, and we're going to go a little further back in time into the antique realm. And I would love to find an Essex Crystal. Now, an Essex Crystal is a reverse carved piece of like rock crystal or rock quartz, and then it's carved on the back, and then the design is painted, and when you look at it from the front is all smooth, right? And it looks like a really nice like 3D or like something floating inside the crystal. Okay, now this one is $2,000. All right, I was just thinking this one's 18 karat gold, and it's also very, you know, the karat gold is what's giving us this high price right here. But I just think it would be kind of fun to find something like this. This one's gold too. I don't know if I'm ever going to find one of these. So then we're kind of getting into the pie in the sky kind of pieces. Now, you can find reverse carved glass pieces. Those can be found. Those are like mid-century or 40s, 50s or whatever. There's reverse carved and painted glass jewelry. I have found and sold those before. I just would like to find an old one. And a lot of times what they did is they did the design and then they covered the back with foil or with mother of pearl. So that kind of gives you an idea of age. But then, you know, there's newer pieces that are just, you would call them reverse carved jewelry, and those sell just as well. But I would imagine that if it was a real Essex crystal from that time period, it would be rock quartz or rock crystal, and you could test that on a gem tester. It wouldn't just be plain glass. Now, I could be wrong about that. Now, here's like these are new, right? These are just charms that somebody came up with. So these are just going to be glass. and somebody's selling a bunch of them, but they're, you know, they're selling. Not interested in something like that. Okay, equestrian themes were really popular. Things like that were, and a lot of like stick pins and tie clips and cufflinks, such type things. So you never know. Maybe my Essex Crystal ship will come in. Now, the very last one we're going to talk about today also has to do with rock crystal, rock quartz, yeah. Anyway. And that is, oh wait, I have information about Essex Crystal. Look at me. Victorian rock crystal jewelry. Here's a nice little history on it. I just kind of found it basically on a Google search. So this site is called Lion and Turnbull. Lyon and Turnbull. Okay, you can research those further if you would like. But what I'm talking about is the pools of light jewelry. This is one of my top, probably longest lasting bucket list items. It would just make my day if I ever came across some pools of light. And it's not about the value, I think, at certain times. It's just about the thrill of the hunt. Is that right? You know, do you guys find that too? Sometimes things just get on your bucket list because you just want to find it. And it's just, you know, that thrill of going out there on the weekend to the estate sales or yard sales or hitting thrift stores and just maybe you're going to find these pieces. Now, the rock crystal pools of light jewelry, here's a picture of one. It had been for sale. Okay, so the thing that you want to look for, a lot of times people will find like a necklace and it's got glass orbs and they're like, oh, pools of light. But if the orbs are drilled and like the chain or the thread goes through it, then they're not the true pools of light. So as it brings out, they're sterling silver. The connections wrap around each rock crystal. This particular one, like it was made the late 1800s. It says they were wire wrapped instead of drilling in order to keep the orbs intact. So when the light kind of goes through it, the light comes out diffused but focused, and it leaves this like, it makes this like pooling of light on the surface next to it. Okay, and so they're, you know, more expensive if you can find these wire wrapped ones. Now, if we pop over to pools of light on eBay, we're in the jewelry category. So yeah, this one's got 50 orbs on it, and you can see the selling prices are pretty high. There's short pieces, I've seen rings, I've seen earrings, I've seen like a pendant necklace with just one orb on it. But the highest priced ones are these like ball necklaces with lots of orbs on them, and people count, you know, they put that in their title, how many rock crystal orbs are on there. But I could just, you know, I'm just picturing myself finding one of these one day. Okay, so here's like a ring, some shorter ones. I'd take a short one. I'd be fine with that. Here's ones that have like some other features in it. So not just the orbs, but just the orbs in it. There's a bracelet. So you can kind of see in some of these pictures that pool of light that kind of happens next to it when it's on like a white background. Okay, so that is my top. Even I left it for last, but the rest were in no particular order. And I would just someday love to find a pools of light piece. And I have seen other resellers find them. I've seen them, you know, in the reselling groups and things like that. People are like, look what I found. And I'm like, okay, my day will come. My day will come. Okay, everybody. So thanks for watching. Thanks for watching me talk about my list of 9 jewelry items or brands that I would love to find and flip in my reselling business. It's nice to kind of review them every once in a while because it kind of puts it fresh in my mind. Not that I think I would miss any of these things out and about, but kind of gives me a renewed hope in finding these out in the wild. I do have a video I've done in the past of my reselling bucket list, my thrifting bucket list in general, not just jewelry, and I'll probably be redoing that one at some point. And so I will, just stay tuned, and I will probably in the near future update that one as well. But leave me a comment down below. Have you found any of these before? Did you know about any of these brands or particular things to be looking for? And what's on your bucket list for thrifting? You can talk about jewelry. You can talk about anything else if you want. So as always, again, thanks for watching, and I will see you soon.